We welcome Mr. Whitaker and we thank him for participating in today's hearing. Now, if you would please rise, I'll begin by swearing you in. Raise your right arm. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Thank you. Let the record show that the witness answered in the affirmative. Thank you, and please be seated. Thank you for your testimony. We will now proceed under the 5-minute rule with questions. I will begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. Now, we fully intend to examine substantive questions of department policy, but part of our job is to make sure that core investigations at the department have not been compromised. So, at a press conference last week, sir, you said that you have been fully briefed on the special counsel's investigation. I would like to better understand that comment. Yes or no, since your appointment as acting attorney general, have you been briefed on criminal or counterintelligence matters within the special counsel's purview?
Chairman, thank you for that question. As you know, I cannot talk about ongoing investigations.
But you can say whether you've been briefed or not.
And as you commented about my recent press conference, as it relates to the special counsel's investigation, I have been briefed on it.
So the answer is yes. Thank you. Were you briefed on those matters at any point while you were serving as Chief of Staff to Attorney General Sessions?
Chairman, I know you're very interested in the special counsel's investigation, and so I want to be very clear about this. Because General Sessions was recused from the special counsel's investigation, I had no involvement in the special counsel's investigation.
So the answer is no. The answer is no. Thank you. How many times were you briefed about the special counsel's work, and when did the briefings take place?
Mr. Chairman, I've said all that I'm planning on saying about the number of times or the briefings that I've received on the special counsel's investigation. It is the subject matter of an ongoing investigation. I think it would be very improper for me, as I sit here today, to talk anything more about it.
Whether you were briefed is the subject of an ongoing investigation? I didn't follow that.
No, the number of times I've been briefed in my involvement in the investigation, sir.
Well, it's our understanding that at least one briefing occurred in December before your decision not to recuse yourself on December 19th and Christmas Day. Is that correct?
What's the basis for that question, sir?
Yes or no? Is it correct?
It
is our understanding that at least one briefing occurred between your decision not to recuse yourself on December 19th and 6 days later, Christmas Day. Is that correct? Simple enough question. Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, again, what is the basis for your question? You're saying that it is your
Sure, I'm asking the questions. I only have 5 minutes. So please answer yes or no.
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to, you were asking me a question. It is your understanding. Can you tell me where you get the basis?
No, I'm not going to tell you that. I don't have time to get into that. I'm just asking you if that's correct or not. Is it correct? Were you briefed in that time period between December 19th and Christmas Day? Simple question, yes or no?
Congressman, if every member here today asks questions based on their mere speculation,
all right, never mind. At any point, yes or no, at any point since that briefing, have you communicated any information you learned in that briefing to President Trump?
Mr. Chairman, I know that there is a unique and
yes or no
special
question,
interest
sir.
in this. I'm
It's
sorry.
a yes or no question. Have you communicated anything you learned in that briefing about the investigation to President Trump? Yes or no?
Mr. Chairman, as I've said earlier today in my opening remarks, I do not intend today to talk about my private conversations with the President of the United States. But to answer your question, I have not talked to the President of the United States about the special counsel's investigation.
So the answer is no. Thank you. To any other White House official?
Again, Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned in my opening statement, I do not intend today to talk about my private conversations with the President nor White House officials. But I will tell you, consistent with what I've already said, I have not talked about the special counsel's investigation with senior White House officials.
Okay. To any third party not already briefed about the special counsel's investigation who might have conveyed that information to the President or his legal team?
Who do you consider third party individuals.
Well, it's really for your consideration. To any third party not already briefed about that investigation who might have conveyed, who you think might have conveyed that information to President Trump or his legal team.
Third persons who I think may have conveyed that information.
Yes.
You know, as I sit here in this chair right now, Mr. Chairman, you know, that's an impossible question for me to ask. I mean, I do not believe that I have briefed third-party individuals outside of the Department of Justice. I have received the briefings myself, and I am usually the endpoint of that information.
But you won't answer the question.
I just did answer your question.
I don't think you did, but let me just say this. Your iteration of the department's longstanding policy appears designed to delay answering these questions as long as possible. I find that unacceptable. I understand the role of executive privilege and respect its value in our system of governance. However, Congress is a co-equal branch of government. We have a responsibility to conduct oversight. This is a responsibility we take very seriously. I've repeatedly tried to work with your office, first in delaying the hearing until February, and then in providing you our questions in advance. I did this because the executive branch's own rules governing assertion of privilege, which were issued by President Reagan and have been followed ever since, say that ultimately it is up to the president to decide whether or not he wants to assert executive privilege. You cannot repeat forever that the president might want to assert privilege. I've given you a fair opportunity to prepare for the hearing and to speak with the White House in advance so that we could avoid this fight in the first place, but you don't appear to have done any of that. The department's failure to do its due diligence here, to me, is deeply troubling. I do not believe that issuing a subpoena here would correct the problem, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to rectify the situation. After today's hearing, we will attempt to reach an accommodation with the department to obtain answers to these questions. As part of that process, I ask for your commitment to return for a deposition before this committee in the coming weeks, under oath, with an understanding that the transcript will be released to the public as soon as practicable thereafter. Any questions that are unanswered today or require consultation with the White House will be asked again at that proceeding, and I expect either a clean answer or a proper assertion of privilege claimed by the President. I would ask members on both sides of the aisle to make those questions clear for the record so we know what must be addressed at the future proceeding. Now, in your capacity as Acting Attorney General, have you ever been asked to approve any request or action to be taken by the Special Counsel?
Mr. Chairman, I see that your 5 minutes is up, and so I'm here voluntarily. We have agreed to 5-minute rounds, and
the committee.
I think that's a fine place to end the 5-minute rule.
The committee will come to order. I will point out that we didn't enforce the 5-minute rule on Acting Attorney General Whitaker. We will.
I understand, Mr. Chairman. I was just saying that might be a good breaking point at that point for you.
No, the Attorney General was in the middle of saying something. Answer the question, please.
Regular order.
Should I ask the question? Okay.
Yeah,
in your capacity
please
as
ask
acting,
the question.
let me just repeat the question so people remember what we're talking about. In your capacity as Acting Attorney General, have you ever been asked to approve any request or action to be taken by the Special Counsel?
Mr. Chairman, I, as the Acting Attorney General, I am under the Special Counsel's rules. I am the person that is ultimately in charge of the investigation, and I have exercised that authority under the Special Counsel's regulations of the Department of Justice.
So I assume the answer is yes.
Regular order, Mr. Chairman.
I assume the answer is yes. You have been asked to approve a request or action, and you've said yes or no? In other words,
Mr. Chairman, I want to be very clear about what you're asking me. Are you asking me if I have asked the Special Counsel to do something?
Regular order, Mr. Chairman.
is this whole thing? Well, I'm asking if I think my words were clear enough. Have you ever been asked to approve any request or action to be taken by the Special Counsel? Last week, you commented on the status of the investigation, stating it was close to being completed, unquote. This was said despite the fact you recognized just moments before that it was ongoing, stating, quote, I really am not going to talk about an open and ongoing investigation otherwise, close quote. So all I'm asking you is, have you been asked to approve or disapprove a request or action to be taken by the special counsel.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
I've asked the question.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Point of order is not in order until the question is
We're
answered.
not operating under the 5-minute rule anymore, then?
Point of order, the witness will answer the question.
I want to be very specific about this, Mr. Chairman, because I think it's going to allay a lot of fears that have existed among this committee, among the legislative branch largely, and maybe among some American people. We have followed the special counsel's regulations to a T. There has been no event, no decision that has required me to take any action, and I have not interfered in any way with the special counsel's investigation.
Very good. Thank you. My time has expired.